YouTube is not doing its thing for love. I don't understand. But that's okay. I don't need to understand. So we are doing Becoming. I believe this is episode 3, where we're going to talk about shadows coming to light. And I'm going to keep my eyes into the YouTube because we stream every Monday at 9. Supposed to be on YouTube. Hola. But it's not doing its thing. So that's okay. So the discussion today is about shadows coming to the light, and you might be experiencing this in your own personal worlds. We're seeing it in the collective in a big way. I'm just looking at YouTube. I don't know why it's not working, but that's okay. We're seeing it. We're seeing it in the collective in a very big way, where there's so much, if we want to label it darkness, but where there's so much darkness coming to the surface, or where the light is really being shone on the darkness. And there is that expression where it is what's done in the dark comes to light. This just feels like it's an age-old story of what's done in the dark comes to light. So on a global scale, on a humanity level scale, we're seeing that happen. But then once again, so going from the macro into the micro of self, you might be noticing aspects of your life where shadows are coming to the surface, or even within your inner being. I had mentioned earlier, when kind of connecting into the energies of May, or what May felt like it would be, there was that strong message of refinement for alignment. So everything that is not necessarily going to be supporting you as you're evolving and as you're growing is being refined or being purified. We are being purified. And through that purification process, of course, we're going to have shadows coming to the surface. Of course, we're going to have even, the aspects of self that are ready, quote unquote ready. Sometimes it doesn't feel like it's ready, but aspects of self that are, I'm just going to use the word ready, but are ready to be purified, to be refined, that are ready to come into more of that source alignment, or that soul alignment, divine alignment with self beyond what has been happening. So that expression, what's done in the dark will come to the light. You will be facing this internally with yourself. You will be facing this, externally in your world, with relationships, with your career, with other humans that you might not know, just like other humans in the world. We are going to be faced with and confronted with this, but it's not necessarily to create havoc or distress or hardship in our life, but it is created. So, sorry, I'm looking at YouTube again. It is created so that we can strip away everything that is deceptive within ourselves, within our lives. We can strip away anything that is not of the highest and best or resonant frequency, if you even want to say it that way, for who you are now and who you're becoming. And we've talked about this a lot, where it's almost unbecoming to become. So everything that you think about yourself or believe about yourself, or everything that you've been having in your life, in your reality, or even having at face value for yourself and for your life is starting to be stripped away. So secrets will come to the surface. Shadows will come to the surface. Everything that is not here for your greatest and highest best is going to come to light. And once again, it's not to cause harm or to hurt, even though it could cause cause harm. It could hurt, but it's not intended to do that. It's intended to really, like, that purification process that we've been talking about. And something that's interesting to reflect on, perhaps there have been aspects in your life, or, aspects of self that you have been keeping in the shadows, or you haven't been fully wanting to embrace, right? The shadows coming to the light. So even these qualities or characteristics in self or aspects of self, they're coming to the light to be embraced. And this is another thing too. As humans, nobody's perfect. Like, I can't stress that enough. Nobody is perfect. And that's okay. Like, what does perfect even mean? It's just like, that is a trap. Perfection is a trap. Nobody's perfect. And there could be aspects of yourself that are in the shadows, or that you reject, or that you don't like. We'll even call it out. There could be aspects of yourself that you don't like, and you don't want to embrace them. You don't want to accept them. But if they're pushed away, it's almost like creates this tension within your being of like not being good enough, or not being quote unquote good or perfect, whatever those stories are. And to push them away, ultimately you're pushing away yourself. And when you push away yourself, you're pushing away your spirit, you're pushing away, in some ways, God, source divine. And so just to remember that, and at the same time, if there are these aspects of self that you are pushing away, or that you don't feel are lovable, or that you don't want to face and look at, that's a beautiful opportunity to say to yourself, in that sacred space of the heart, what is it about this that I can't face? What, so to ask yourself that, or even to ask yourself, what is it about this shadow that's come to the surface that you can't embrace? What is it about this secret that keeps you in hiding? What is it about this situation that feels like it must remain in the shadows? So these are questions that you can ask yourself. And I'm just once again peering here. Sorry. Oh, YouTube is such a trip. The technology. And see, now there's like a distraction coming. the YouTube distraction. So to really look at, and I just keep hearing, it's like, what about this can you not face? What about this feels like, you can't actually go head to head about it or acknowledge it. And when things are coming to the surface, they're coming to the surface to be acknowledged generally. And even like when we're looking at what's going on in the collective, like there's a lot of things that are coming to light, and it's not that they haven't been there for a long time. It's not that at all. But at the same time, even as humanity's been expanding our consciousness, we're through humanity expanding their consciousness, through us awakening to our light, through us awakening up to our divinity, for enough of us to face our shadows, that helps to clear the way for humanity too. Like that lifts the veil, so to speak, or starts to create the process. The more that we do that on our own, and yes, a drop in the ocean, but the more that we do that on our own, the more that clears the way for the collective. So some things, once again, to reflect on is, if right now you are feeling things coming to the surface or witnessing them within yourself, and it feels uncomfortable, to explore explore that, to lean into what is it about this that feels uncomfortable. Is it something to do with you? Is it something to do with other people? Is it like, so to really almost call it out in that way. And if you're witnessing this in your external world where things are coming to the surface, where, you know, you might be seeing things differently in your life and your world and in people in it or circumstances around it, what is that showing you? So these are wonderful opportunities, if we choose to look at them that way, opportunities to ask questions and explore of, I wonder what this is about, right? What is this situation here to show me? Whether it's to show me something, right? To show you something about another person, to show you something about yourself. Because so often we will be mirrors for each other, right? Something that is happening externally in your world that you're witnessing in another person. Where could that be within you? Right? And not to say that it will always be, you know, we won't say that. But very often, more than likely, you're going to have, things show up in other people that are mirroring back to you. And perhaps these are also even lessons of how can you remain in your heart? How can you remain in the light that you are and not get consumed by the darkness, to not go into the shadows, to not get pulled into the shadows. And sometimes when that's happening, or, you know, when you're in different situations where I just keep getting pulled to rejection of self, or aspects of self that are rejected for maybe different reasons. Maybe you were very loud and talkative as a child and very curious, and growing up it wasn't received, or people would tell you you were too much, or people would tell you you were too loud, or you would be talking but it just felt like you weren't being listened to or being appreciated. So to even look at that now, like you might feel like you can't say what you want, say what you need, or to really speak and be vocal because previously it was shut down. Maybe you're even having that reflected out to you in your day-to-day life right now. That could be a thing. But at the same time, something to be mindful or to be aware of. When that happens to you, it might not have anything to do with you. So if someone is not open to receiving your conversations, or someone is feeling like you're too much, and you've been shown that throughout your life, that the curiosity and the expressive communication is too much, and then now you've taken that on as a weight or part of yourself that you can't embrace. What if them not being able to receive that has nothing to do with you? And that's an important thing to remember as well. So often things can be internalized that truly have nothing to do with you, but it gets taken on as yours. And even in terms of, things that are done in the darkness coming to light. When they're coming to light, they're coming to be acknowledged. Things remain in the shadows, or things remain in the darkness because they're like fighting to not come to the surface. But they come to the light to be acknowledged. They come to the light for awareness. They come to the light to be healed and transformed. So when those aspects of self, those shadow self, the characteristics are coming to the surface, it's not, oh, woe is you, or where we were saying to create havoc and chaos in your world. No, It's coming to the light to be acknowledged. It's coming to the light to be addressed, and once again to be healed and transformed. Because when things are in the shadows, when they're not being acknowledged, it's like you have perhaps maybe even a weight on your shoulder or a weight in your heart, right? There is no true freedom when that's there. And even though when that comes to the surface, like I said, it could hurt. It could cause harm in different ways, but it's coming to the surface to be acknowledged. And some aspects it's coming to the surface to be embraced. In other areas it's coming to the surface to be let go of. Because let's say, for example, it keeps pivoting to like these aspects of self, shadow self, parts of self that have been denied or not seen as lovable. Because that comes down to it too. When things are looked at in that polarity of the shadow and like those parts of yourself that you don't want to embrace, those would be the parts of yourself that you don't feel are lovable. Those would be the parts of yourself that you don't feel are worthy. Those are the parts of yourself that you want to hide. Because what happens if they come to the surface? Will you be turned away? Will you then, be looking at yourself in different ways? So, when those aspects are coming to the surface, so let's say, for example, you have resentment in your heart, and you've been resentful, and that's been there, but you haven't wanted to acknowledge or embrace it. That's a shadow self, and you could have this perspective of wanting to be kind and loving, because as humans, we're here to be kind and loving with each other. So to hold resentment doesn't necessarily match that frequency or state of being that you would want to be. So you're holding resentment in your heart, but you don't acknowledge it because that's the shadow. So you push it to the side, or you pretend it's not there. And see, this is a disservice to ourselves when we pretend that things aren't there. When we avoid looking, and pretend they're not there. I shared recently on social media a process that I had gone through with repressed anger, and just denying that and not facing it and allowing myself to feel it in many different ways. And when that actually started to come to the surface, when all of that anger that had been repressed and stored in my physical body was coming to the surface, it affected me physically in such a way that I ended up getting a condition where half of my face was paralyzed. It was wild to, in real time, just have all of these emotions coming to the surface, and then physically having my face start to go numb and become paralyzed. And so that was from repressed anger that had been hiding. It had been repressed. That was in the shadows. So this is an example. So now we're talking about perhaps you have resentment that has been in the shadows and you haven't wanted to acknowledge that. And maybe this is not something new for you though. Maybe, and not to say that you're a resentful person by any means, but at the same time, maybe you've been holding resentment for a long time. Maybe you've been holding resentment for as long as you can remember and you don't even know why. So when that comes up, and perhaps you've shared that resentment before with others, and we're told that you can't have that. Resentment is bad. Resentment is wrong. You're supposed to be kind and loving, right? All these shoulds that you're supposed to be. So then you walk around with your life holding that resentment, or not feeling like you can actually face it. But if it's coming up for you, once again, when things are coming to the light, they're coming to be acknowledged. And we don't have to go, oh, I don't know, we don't have to wallow in them. Like, for example, if that resentment came up for you, you don't have to completely like feed the resentment and then like, twist it. Things don't have to be twisted or distorted, but they are asking to be acknowledged, right? Or they wouldn't be there. You wouldn't be feeling it, sensing it, knowing it if it wasn't coming up to be acknowledged. So perfect example as well, like we were saying with the collective, there's so much coming to the surface of things that have been hidden for a long time. Ola, things that have been hidden for a long time where you would never want to believe that it was real, right? You'd never want to believe that it was real, but it is coming to the surface, and there's some darkness. Like if we're going to just be fully transparent, there is some darkness. But once again, when we're saying these things are coming to the light, they're coming to the light to be acknowledged. They're coming to the light to be healed and transformed. They're not coming to the light to bring more pain and suffering, although it can bring more pain and suffering. It's ultimately being brought to the surface for that healing and that transformation. And through that healing and that transformation and through that awareness, change happens. Because if things are done in the dark, if things are done in the shadows and they're not brought to the light, there's no awareness. There's no awareness. So how do things change if there's no awareness? So yes, more pain and suffering might come of that, of like the atrocities that are happening on our planet, or the government. Like there's so much we could talk about, but it's coming to the light so that now us as humanity, more of us, I can't, because there are us that know, but more of us are becoming aware. It's turning into mainstream information. So the more people that are aware, the more that can transform. So same with you and your life. The more that you become aware of what is going on inside of you, the more that you become aware of the shadow selves that you've been repressing or denying or labeling as good or bad, or like all of the stories that we have, the more that you become aware of that within yourself, everything changes, right? Everything changes within you, but then you might start being in your world differently. Or for example, if there's things that come to light in your life or in your world or in your relationships, you might start to look at that differently or feel differently or navigate differently now that you know. Because there's that expression, you don't know what you don't know, but then when you know, you can't not know. Yeah, you can't stick your head in the sand after you know. But at the same time, then change happens, transformation happens. So just it's even an encouragement for this week. If there's been aspects of yourself that you've been hard on yourself with, or even judgmental, you could have been judgmental with yourself. Because I feel so strongly that there's parts of ourselves that can be taken on as not good enough or bad, or other people have projected that on to you, but it's not you, right? It's their projections, or even sometimes we can be our worst critics. So that has been projected onto you by yourself, but to really find a sense of acceptance and find ways to embrace those aspects of you. So perfect example of, let's say, there's an aspect of yourself that could be considered shadow self. Like let's say, let's say if you've been hurt, you shut down. Perfect example. Somebody's hurt you, you shut down. Because this happens a lot for folks. It's like you're not closing your heart, but to not get hurt again, you'll create space, you'll create distance, and you'll shut down. And so part of you might think, oh, like, I wish I didn't have this, or why do I do this? But blame it, right? Like, you could be critical on yourself or blame yourself for it, versus going into the heart, having compassion with that aspect of you that you might view as shadow, right? You could be viewing this as shadow. So going into the heart, having the compassion for yourself, and actually witnessing that need to shut down, that need to create space and distance, and to see it as, oh, okay, so this is actually a protection mechanism. And you could have had, remember, you could have had this from a very young age. Like, sometimes these aspects that feel like shadow selves, like you could be carrying them for what feels like lifetimes. I can't even say lifetime. Like, it could be lifetimes. But when you are open to not judge, to have that compassion for yourself, you might start to be able to witness the light within the shadow. You might start to understand why that quote unquote shadow's there. And don't get me wrong, like, sometimes there could be toxicity that is the shadow. There could be toxic behaviors or patterns that you have or that others have that are shadow. But when we go into that space of curiosity to acknowledge potential reason, like, we don't need to know all the times and ways it's there, but to acknowledge it instead of point a finger, instead of judge or be critical, more might be revealed. Because that toxic shadow traits, like those toxic traits, could be protection, right? Because, so perfect example, where we're just talking about, if someone hurts you, you shut down. You create space, you create distance, you get cold. Oh, like you can feel the chill in the air. That's for you. And that's your protection mechanism, and you could be viewing that as a shadow. Well, what about someone else? And them as a perfect example, they're perfect example for if they get hurt. They don't do what you would do, where it's shutting down and getting cold and creating space. What if theirs is like explosive anger? Like, if somebody hurts them, they get angry. Like, and that could be their defense mechanism, though. But that could also be viewed as the shadow. But we don't want to judge. Like, that's the most important thing to say about all of this. We don't want to judge what we could perceive, where you're looking at it as it's bad or wrong. Like, that's just that. As humans, we want to label things, and that can happen a lot. So if your quote unquote shadow trait, if someone hurts you, is to get cold and create space and shut down and just do that, like, have compassion for yourself and understand that's a safety mechanism for you. But now you see it and you understand it and you acknowledge it. And so now moving forward, if you get hurt, how can you still have your heart open? How can you still have communication, but maybe with boundaries? And for, the other, if yours is to get angry, like explosive anger, if someone hurts you, you see it, you acknowledge it, you don't have to judge it. Like, it doesn't have to be you're a horrible person because you get angry, it doesn't have to be that way. However, when we acknowledge it, right, we're acknowledging it, not criticizing it, not judging it. When you acknowledge it, what can you do differently next time? Because remember, we're saying everything comes to the light for awareness, and it comes to the light for awareness to heal and transform. And transformation creates change. So if that pattern's active in you, how do you shift it? And you can't shift it if you're not aware of it. And so often, like, oh gosh, being on autopilot in life, in the world, just like going through the motions, like how can you be aware of that if we're not present, right? Like we have to be present to truly have that awareness, and to even through that awareness, like when things are coming to the surface, to not attack. Yeah, it feels very important to not attack or judge, right? To not attack or judge, especially what's going on in our worlds. Like there's so much stuff coming to the surface, and it's creating separation, it's creating divide, and how are we going to be able to create changes in a positive direction if there's so much anger and animosity, right? Like it's just, and rightly so, in some cases, rightly so, if there's these crimes against humanity. But at the same time, it's like we do have to work together, and at the same time, even having gratitude to know, right? Because there's been so much anger and, frustration that comes up, or judgment that comes up, because why so long? Why did it take so long for this to come to the surface? Or why, why did I have to find out this way? Why did we have to find out this way? And on and on and on. Like the divine justice. It shouldn't have been this way, but it was, and it is. And it is. Like, isn't that the beautiful thing? And it is. Yeah, maybe it didn't have to be that way. Maybe, things don't have to be found out in a specific way, or you would imagine them to be brought to the light in a different way. But at least they're brought to the light, right? And so that's an even more important note to mention. At least they have been brought to the light. There's no more secrets. There's nothing hiding in the shadows anymore. It has been brought to the surface. It has been brought to the light. And then we get to choose what we do with that information, even within like yourself and those aspects that you might not love, accept, acknowledge within yourself, that you might not be proud of within yourself. You get to choose what now you're going to do within your being with that. And we do want to be kind and loving. Like, even if there is toxicity, you want to be kind and loving, because like through that brings the awareness of why is that even there? Why did that take root? Why does that feel like that's the best state of being, within yourself? So to really have that compassion for yourself, and just to pose a curiosity within your being of what parts of yourself have you been denying? What part, and I want to elaborate, but it's almost even like, no, it's that simple. It's just like straight to the point. Like, what parts of yourself have you been denying? What parts of yourself have you not been acknowledging? What parts of yourself are waiting to be loved, appreciated, valued, embraced, accepted? And this is inside. This is you. Like, this is you. This does not have anything to do with other people in your life and in your world. This is like right now, this reflection for you. What parts of yourself have you been denying? What parts of yourself have been waiting to be embraced? What parts of yourself have been waiting to be accepted? What parts of yourself have been waiting to be acknowledged? And so that's you. And then it all starts with us. It's always us first. So then we can like spiral out. So that's the micro here. And then we can spiral out into the macro, into those greater relationships that we have, like the more intimate relationships that we have, and then like expanding out into like the unitedness that we have as a species, as humanity. So we've started with you. What parts of yourself have you been denying? What parts of yourself are waiting to be accepted and acknowledged and embraced by you? And then people in your life, in your world, are there things that you have been denying about that? Are there things that have been in the shadows that you have been pushing to the side? Where are you not acknowledging different shadows in others? And are these shadows here to be accepted and embraced? Or are these shadows here to be let go of? Because that's an interesting reflection as well. And once again, see, this is where we were talking about you, where there could be, this quote unquote toxic traits, or like the shadow, it's like not healthy for you or others in different situations. But is it coming to the surface? Like that awareness, is it coming to the surface? So yeah, you see it, you acknowledge it. And then like, is it time to let go? Is it time for it to be transformed? Because if we think about humans and our own personal lives, but collectively, we're always evolving. Like we're always evolving. Like nature, nature, everything is growing and evolving. Everything has these different cycles. And it's beautiful. And it's like, it's intricately, there we go, that's the word. It's intricately timed. Like everything has its time. So even for you on your soul's path and your evolution and what's happening for you in this now moment, like personally, like we could say collectively, but for you right now personally, if there are shadows coming to the surface and things that have been hiding, like they've just been bubbling, and Scorpio moon. Scorpio. I just can't get enough of Scorpio. Anyway, in the best way. But like that energy is like this deep brooding, like the secrets from the depths of the soul come to the surface. And if that is happening for you right now, because it just feels like we are in it. So you personally, if these, we'll just call them secrets or shadows that have been bubbling beneath the surface. It's not like they haven't been there, it's like they've been bubbling beneath the surface for some time, and you've got glimpses of them, and then maybe they've submerged themselves, and then, it's like bubbling and coming up and coming up and coming up until the reveal. And then it's here. And now that it's here, and now that you see it, think about where we were talking about the intricate timing of everything. The divine timing of everything. So these shadows, secrets, whatever it is, bubbling to the surface to be revealed. And now it is revealed here. Why now? What is asking to be transformed in you and your life at this moment? Because it's not coming up to the surface for no reason. It's not coming up to the surface to turn a blind eye, to push down, to ignore. We're saying the shadows come to the light, to be acknowledged, to be healed and transformed. And what's done in the dark will come to the light, to be healed, to be transformed. So if there are things within yourself coming to the surface, if there are things within other people that you're connected to coming through the surface, or if there are situations that are just presenting themselves to you right now, gratitude. And sometimes gratitude might not be the main thing you'd go to. It's like, what? This can't be true. This isn't who I am. This isn't who they are. This isn't blah, 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 blah. Repress, push down, avoid. So gratitude, thank you. Now this is in the light. Now I see. Now I acknowledge. Now what is next? What am I being asked to transform? What am I being asked to acknowledge? What am I being asked to let go of? Right? Aren't these beautiful questions that we can ask ourselves? So for that reflection of, what have you been denying about yourself? What parts of yourself have been waiting to be accepted and to be embraced? Like, could we do this? Could we do that? Like the embracing of self? Like, I don't know about you. It's hard out in the world. Like, real talk. It's hard out in the world. It's hard being a human, especially right now. And sometimes it could feel like there's so much going on, and it's like, not that the world's against you, but you know what I'm saying? So like, you got to have your own back. We have to support ourselves. We have to be on our team, right? Because if there's so much of that already going on outside, like, it does not help to have that torrential downpour and judgment and criticism within self. So just to be mindful of that. But yeah, what this week, like, what are ways that you can really come into this sense of acceptance of self and the shadow of self, acceptance of shadows of others, and just like be in that state once again. Like, we don't want to put ourselves in harmful situations or accept like toxic, unacceptable behavior from other people if that's their shadow. Like, that's not what we're talking about. We're not doing that. We're not doing that. More of like seeing someone's shadow and having compassion for them instead of, blaming, pointing, criticizing, they're horrible, regardless of what it is. And same thing for you, seeing those shadow aspects of self, acknowledging them, loving yourself through it, but not enabling in any way. And there's going to be more of this. Gosh, there's going to be more of this. And especially in May, like this month is the refining fires. That's really bringing forward purification. So be mindful of that. If things are coming to the surface right now, it's like we're in the refining fires. Purification is here. Anything that is not, in resonance with you, anything that does not have the best intentions or integrity with you or for you, like, that stuff's all going to start to burn away. And it's going to continue. And at the same time, it's like, do you have grace and allow the purification to happen? Or do you fight it? Do you resist it? Do you stop the process that is divinely ordained and orchestrated to happen? Do you exert your control and force over what is divinely orchestrated? Oh, important questions, right? Important questions to reflect on. But know that you're not alone. Truthfully, you're not alone. There's so many folks are going through that, like myself included. Like, we're all going through this in varying degrees and ways, but it is happening for a lot of us. And just to know, so something to take comfort in is that nothing, and this is personally, this is globally, like, this is universally, something to take comfort in is knowing that what is done in the dark will come to the light in one way or another. It can't stay hidden. And so even like those shadows within self, or shadows that are presenting themselves in your life and in the world, like, they can't stay hidden. But at the same time, through the coming to the light, and I've said this multiple times, but through the coming to the light, through the darkness coming to the light, through the revelation of what has been hidden coming to the light, healing and transformation will come. And ultimately, for each and every soul's, let's even just say it this way, for each and every soul's highest evolution. It comes to the light for each and every soul's highest evolution, even if hurt and harm is caused. It comes to the light for each soul's highest evolution. That feels heavy and light at the same time. But yeah, once again, a wonderful time to be here for Becoming with you. And YouTube, we're going to figure you out, because you've just been like doing this thing in the background and I'm looking periodically, but I don't know what's happening there. But Instagram, happy to be here. And yeah, what parts of yourself have you been denying? And what parts of yourself that are waiting to be accepted and embraced? Lots of love. Mwah.